Hello and welcome to another edition of Your Future, Your Choice. Today we're going to focus on the topic of what employers look for in a job applicant. My guest today is David Semich. He is the President and Chief Technical Officer of Media Attractions, LLC. Back in the day, back in the early 80s, when Three Rivers Stadium was still here, for those of you that are too young to remember or know, Three Rivers Stadium was the prequel to what is now PNC Park. But a friend of mine wanted to go to tryouts for the minor league affiliate of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he asked me to go along with him. I thought, what the heck? I've never seen open tryouts before for a baseball team, so I went down with him. And while he was going through the different sections and routines that they were looking for, I started to speak to one of the coaches, and I asked him, very basically, what do you look for in these tryouts? What is it that you want to find in someone who is on the field? And he said basically what we're looking for is speed, talent, and demeanor. Speed is something that you really can't teach. So if you have it, it's a great advantage. And that's the first thing we look for. Talent with walk-on tryouts, we want to know that you at least have the basics. You can throw the ball accurately. You can catch the ball. We want to see that you have basic baseball attributes. And then demeanor. We want to know that you can get along with the other guys in the locker room. We don't want a bad apple ruining the locker room. And that's basically what we're looking for. We're looking for speed. We're looking for talent. We're looking for demeanor in these tryouts. Unfortunately, my buddy didn't make the cut. But it was very interesting to watch what they did, how they did it. And the reason why I bring this story up is employers are no different. They're looking for relevant skills. They're looking for initiative, reliability, dependability. They want somebody that gets along with others. They want somebody that they can count on. They want somebody who is going to go the extra mile to help them grow their business. So employers are looking for the same basic characteristics and basic values that a pro sports franchise does. And that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to talk about what employers look for in a job applicant. So stick around, we'll be right back. Joining me now is David Semich. He is the President and Chief Technical Officer of Media Attractions, LLC. Prior to this life, he spent over a decade as an instructor and IT department chair at the Pittsburgh Technical Institute. So first of all, let's start with your current role as President of Media Attractions, LLC. Tell me a little bit about your company. What is it that Media Attractions does?
Media Attractions is a digital advertising company. We have digital signs, and we have our patrons have them in their shops, their restaurants, and people can view them and have their advertisements there. There's also different things on there to keep them busy while they're waiting for their meals to arrive, and it's an advantage for the advertisers because they have kind of a captive audience there to view.
Well, let me ask you, as an employer, what do you look for when you're looking at a job applicant? Take me through that process.
There's the obvious things of, are they dressed nice when they come for an interview? Are they punctual? Do they come on time? And depending on the job, of course, you want them to have the proper skill set. Mm-hmm. Now, if there's a salesperson, you want to have them to be able to, sell snowballs to Eskimos. And if they're a teacher, you want to make sure that they're able to keep their students occupied mm-hmm. and, in learning and want to learn, give them a desire to learn. And, the thing, though, is is if a student, and I want to give the student's perspective as well, because the expectations of an employer of a student are different, for that entry level job than they are for someone coming in that should be experienced on the field.
How so? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The students that just coming from school, they don't need to know everything. They just need to want to know everything, and I think that's very important as being an employee, is to want to learn.
Okay.
And also there's other differences, such as the expectations, of course, are different, but the expectations of being there on time and doing things in the right manner, professional manner, are also expected.
There's a young lady that I worked with for a while. She was a recruiter, and she recruited mainly for the nonprofit sector. I don't know really if that has anything to do with it here or there. That's just the niche that she was in. And she told me primarily there were three things that she looked for when she was recruiting candidates for positions. Number one is, can you do the job? Number two is, will you do the job? And number three is, can you get along with other people? And I thought that was a rather simplistic way, but after really thinking about it, and you're kind of confirming that, I guess it really does boil down to, can you get along with other people? Because people want to deal with people they like. I guess human nature is pretty much that simple. Can you do the job? Do you have the basic skills, which is what you've said? Because I know working with other companies, and even as an employee myself, when you go into a company, Apple has their own way of doing things. Google has their own way of doing things. UPS has their own way of doing things. The company is going to teach you their system.
Exactly.
So that part of it is kind of moot, because everybody has their own way of doing things. But do you have the basics? Like you said, are you punctual? You're going to be on time. Can I rely on you?
Right.
Things of that nature. So I guess then that really is true. That's what people want. That's what employers want, and then they'll mold them to fit their system, if you will.
That dependability is huge. Can I depend on you being there? The other thing is, you're representing me to my customers. Mm-hmm. Okay, depending on what the position is, you're almost always going to have to deal with customers one way or another. Can you represent my company professionally? That's a big thing, and dress goes into that, and actions and attitude. I guess one of the things that we're kind of missing here is we've mentioned it in a way, but attitude is everything. Mm-hmm. Do you have the right attitude?
There was a study done back in 2010 by Right Management. They're a subsidiary of Manpower, which is a huge employee firm, job skills firm. And what they said in this study, what they found is, when employers look at a resume, the top three things that they're looking for: number one is relevant skills, number two is industry experience, and then number three is education level. When you look at a resume, do you pretty much follow that, or are you looking for something more specific, or is one thing weighted more than something else?
I'm not sure the things are weighted differently. I think it's got to be a good even match. I mean, you're not going to normally find an expert, and if you do, there probably may not be the right person for that job, depending on the salary. So you want somebody who can do the job and can do it well enough, but they've got to have that attitude, and they've got to be able to get along with everyone. You can have the best employee, but if they can't get along with the rest of your employees, then you're going to have a work environment that's not going to be conducive to anyone.
Kind of like a bad apple in the barrel.
Right, you got a bad apple in the barrel, and that bad attitude, can sometimes spread to other employees, and you just have to be able to get along, and can't say that enough. Now, when you come for an interview, can I see that? Kind of, in a way. It depends on your attitude when you come in. Of course, there's surprises sometimes,
sure,
but your attitude whenever you come in for that interview is a big thing.
But you mentioned salary, and that's a big thing now, especially with all the talk in the news about raising the minimum wage, and you know, I know there was a lady recently, and I wish I could remember her name, but I can't. But I heard it on the radio where she works for Walmart. She's also a Walmart stockholder, and she was at the annual meeting, and she brought up a very valid point. She basically said, you know, there's something terribly wrong in America when the richest company in the world pays their people below poverty rates. And, you know, there's just such a disconnect there. I guess this would fall in line more with seasoned employees. But are you finding a hard time getting qualified employees because you just can't pay the salaries that they're used to? Or is that entering into anything that you're seeing from an employer's view?
I do see that with students that, you know, whenever they even graduate from college with an associate degree, they want to start out being the CIO of a company, and that just doesn't happen. Everybody has to start out at help desk or, you know, maybe something a little above that, and you've got to kind of prove yourself. And really that's good for you because in a way you're not set up to fail. You know, you can't go to a position that is too high your level because you're just not going to make it.
There seems to be a disconnect between expectations, employer expectations, and employee or job applicant expectations. Like you said, these people come out of school, trade school, college, whatever the case may be, thinking they're going to run the company, and that's just not the case, be it an associate, bachelor, or master degree, sometimes even a PhD. Let's talk a little bit from the other side of the desk. When you were at PTI, actually working with the students, helping to prepare them to go out on an interview and go out and find a job. Take me through some of that process and some of the dealings you had on that side of the desk.
We had advisory board meetings with people from industry.
Okay.
We had them come in every quarter. We would meet with them and find out, you know, what's new in the industry. What are you looking for? What software packages are you looking for? What technical skills are you looking for? What other intangible skills are you looking for? You know, and of course, it always come on time and be willing to you know, do the job without asking too many questions, but not being afraid to ask a question when it is needed.
Okay.
So we would meet with them, like I said, every quarter and find out what has changed in that industry. They would actually help us develop courses so that we could match what was needed out there.
Okay, so you took it the extra step and actually modified your curriculum based on what the job market was saying we need. These are the skills we need, so you would kind of match the curriculum to that.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
I mean, because, you know, when you talk about IT, you're talking about operating systems that change, you know, every couple of years, and you're talking about applications that change monthly. So,
right.
You know, you've got to make sure that your students weren't on Windows, you know, 3.1 or Windows XP, and now they're coming out with Windows 7 and, you know, now, of course, Windows 8. So you've got to make sure that those students have the right skills when they leave. So we would canvass the employers to find out, you know, when do you think you're going to be transitioning into that, so that we could time with our students what they were going to be taught.
Okay.
So that was the first thing we did. The second thing, PTI has career services classes, and students start out with the first day actually to start with their resume. You know, PTI wants them to make sure that the students start out knowing that they're in a career.
Okay.
So start building that resume from day one. So that's kind of the philosophy that went into that was, you know, I'm starting my career from day one. I'm going to treat this as a career.
Okay.
So the other classes we would have classes that told them about benefits, job expectations, the interviews. We would have mock interviews.
Okay.
We would, you know, have different classes on, you know, your dress attire. You know, we would actually have days when students would come in and get dressed. And PTI would also have career fairs where employers would come in. So, you know, it was the whole gambit. One of the most important things I think of any school, and this isn't just PTI, and there's a lot of talk about it now going out there in politics, and that is internships.
Right.
Every student that graduated from our programs went on an internship, and I can't express how important that is to students to get those skills. They have the comfort level, and it gives an employer the chance to look at that student and say, you know what, this is a good student, or maybe this isn't what I'm looking for, but maybe they can do something else. So it kind of gives both parties, a look into if it's a good fit or not.
What about volunteer work? Because not everyone, especially now, I'm finding out that internships are becoming fewer and far between.
Right.
How do employers look at when they see, especially someone just coming out of college that really hasn't had a quote-unquote real job yet? How do they view volunteer work? Is that viewed similar to internships, or is that kind of dismissed, or does that hold any weight at all?
It's not dismissed, and it does hold weight. I mean, certainly it's not as good as an internship because you're showing your exact skills, but it does show that student was willing to go out there and do extra, more than what's required. And that's what any employer is looking for.
To succinctly sum that up is internship is a reflection of relevant skills. Volunteer work is a reflection of initiative.
Initiative, attitude, right, exactly. Initiative.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So you can expect that whenever they come work for you. If they can do those skills, then they're going to take the initiative to come to you maybe and say, hey, boss, it would be easier if we maybe did this way, or why are we doing this that way? In a non-confrontational,
right.
manner.
So the old adage, I'm looking for a go-getter to help me make my business grow.
Exactly, yeah, right.
It always seems to roll back to common sense, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
You were about to expand on something, and I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you did, because this is kind of different than volunteers. And I was starting to think about one of the other things that employers, and this changed from time to time, and that was certifications.
Okay.
Are employers looking for certifications? And it all depends on the employer, but as a general rule, certifications are never a bad thing.
Okay.
Some of them have gotten a bad rap because, some of them might have been too easy over the years. But those that are qualified certifications are a good things for a student to have. Again, it's that initiative. They didn't have to get that cert, but they went out and got it on their own time and their own money.
And I guess, too, something that the student would want to look at is the body that's certifying them. So, make sure before you spend the time and the money that the certification holds weight within the industry.
Exactly.
Right. If I'm a welder, I don't want to be certified by Joe's Welding Shop.
Right.
I want to be whatever, the International Welding, and I'm just making this up, but you get my idea.
Right.
You want to make sure that it's a bona fide certifying agent.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want some fly-by-night thing where you just get anybody who pays the money gets that certification. So you want to do that investigating. And one way to find out, too, would be a good thing is if you have a company, and I encourage not just students, but anyone who's going out looking for a job, don't be afraid to call an employer and say, what are you looking for as far as certifications, as far as skills, as far as education? If you find that out ahead of time and you're able to get those, then it's going to help you to get that position that you're looking for.
When I was working with students, I ran into this a lot, and since you've worked with students as well, how did you get around the fact where you would tell the student to take initiative, call, and they would call the company, and this held true mostly with the bigger companies I found, but they would say, oh yeah, just go on our website and apply. You can't get past that initial gatekeeper.
That gatekeeper.
We do everything on the website. We won't even talk to you until you go on the website and apply.
Right.
How do you get around that?
Well, one way to get around that is to look at the news. Go on their website, look at the news, and find out who the leaders are of the company. And then instead of asking for an interview or ask to talk to someone, and just say your name, and as though you already know the person. Hi, this is Dave Semich, and I'd like to talk to John, and and you might get through that gatekeeper. But that's one tactic to be able to do that.
So again, it boils down to personal networking.
Yes, personal networking, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Let's switch over now, and I don't know in your business if you come across this very much or had much dealing with it, but military veterans are a big thing right now. Hire a vet, hire a vet, hire a vet. Can't dispute it.
Absolutely not.
But they're having a tough time.
Right.
Are you seeing a greater influx of veterans applying for positions to your place, or when you talk to other people within your industry and other leaders, what are you hearing as far as military personnel being hired?
Right. Because of the size, we have a very small business. We don't get that many applicants for military, but would certainly consider them on the top of the list. I mean, when you think about it, a military person comes in with a lot of skills. You want to talk punctual, you want to talk to a military person.
Sure.
And every other great thing that they do. I can't say enough good about the military. But one thing I did notice, as students who would come into PTI to further their education, was that they would have a difficult time transferring the skills from their resume of the military to the resume of civilian life. And
Okay.
I find that to be very difficult for them, and something that's very important. You're not going to work on a machine gun whenever you work, in industry and IT industry. But
Right.
you did work on machinery, you did follow procedures, you were able to, do things in a sequential manner. Those are all skills that you have to be able to transfer from that resume to the civilian resume in order to get your foot in the door. And really, we didn't talk about this yet, but one of the most important things you can do is get your foot in the door.
Sure.
If you can't get an interview, you're not going to get that job. So
Right.
the resume, you can't say enough about it.
So I guess then again, once again, it boils down to networking.
Right.
Now, being in IT, you probably run across this all the time. Let's expand on networking a little bit. Social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, names. There's a million of them out there. My daughter has 500 connections on LinkedIn. Maybe has only personally met a dozen of them. Has no idea who these people are. How valuable really is that? I'm old school, and I was always taught, and I still believe, there's nothing that can replace good old-fashioned, grab your hand, shake it, look you in the eye.
Right.
There's still nothing better than that. But you can't discount social media. Just how effective is social networking with regard to actually getting a job?
Right. That's a good question. Nothing is better than, networking and personal one-on-one conversations. But you can't ignore social media, as you explained. It is very important, especially LinkedIn. I think every professional, even every student, should have a LinkedIn account. And it should be up to date, and it should be, similar to what you have on your resume. Because people can, cross-reference that. There's a lot of things good that you can put in LinkedIn that you don't have room for in your resume. So you want to make that as your add-on kind of thing.
Okay.
And you even want to reference it in your resume. Facebook. You have to be very careful with Facebook because, employer can go on there, see some things that may not be appropriate or might be appropriate, but you don't want that possibility to occur. I mean, I had a candidate come in one time, and I asked him about Facebook. I said, do you have a Facebook account? This was a while ago when Facebook first came out, and the person said no. And I said, really? And I showed him a copy of their
Busted.
a copy of their Facebook. So. Yeah, maybe it's not up to date, but you do have a Facebook account. And you want to be wary that people do look you up and try to find out as much as they can about you, a good employer.
So the photo of you riding the dog at the frat party, you want to take that down.
You definitely want to take that down.
That's awesome.
You know, not
That's
to say
awesome.
those things are bad things necessarily, but they're not something that you want to advertise.
I've had several people tell me before you go on a job interview, Google yourself.
Right.
And see what comes up, because the employer is doing the exact same
Same
thing.
thing.
So clean it up before you start going
Right.
at. And I had never thought of that, but it makes perfect sense in this day and age.
Right. And the converse of that, you know, you want to make sure you Google the company and know everything about them, because
Right.
if they ask you something about the company, you should know that, because if you don't, then you're not interested enough to work for me, and you know, you didn't even know what I do, so
Right. Again,
I'm
back
not
to-
interested in you.
Back to initiative.
Back to initiative,
Show them
exactly.
that. It seems to always boil down back to initiative, relevant skills, desire. Those seem to be the common denominators.
Responsibility,
Yeah.
accountability, you know, it's all of that.
So in today's world, nothing really changes.
No.
It's all the same characteristics that, you know, we looked for 150 years ago.
There's just a million more cameras and
Right.
and people looking at us than before, but nothing really changes. You wanna-
Okay, fantastic. Well, David, I think we covered everything we need to cover. I want to thank you very much. Is there anything that you'd like to add that maybe we didn't touch on, or anything that you think is relevant to this conversation?
I don't think anything, just that when a student goes in for an interview, and we can maybe talk about interviews at another point, but when a student goes into an interview, they want to make sure that they show a sign of interest, you know, in that company, and confidence. The one thing that I always told students, and this goes with anybody looking for a job, is, you know, you've got to already believe that you have that job, because if you don't, that employer's not going to believe it, and they're probably not going to hire you.
Okay. I want to thank my guest, David Semich, for joining me today. He added some great insight from both sides of the table, both as an employer and also somebody who spent a decade not only teaching but working with students to get them prepared for job interviews, to go out into the job market. Two of the things that really hit home that I thought were very pertinent were the internship programs and volunteer work. Again, as we had mentioned, internships pretty much demonstrate your relevant skill set, which is something that employers very much want to see. Volunteer work shows your initiative. Again, that's something that employers want to see. They want somebody who's going to go the extra mile. They don't want someone who's going to just walk in, do their 9 to 5, and then leave, and you never hear from them again. That doesn't help their business. They're looking for go-getters. So I thought that was very relevant to the conversation. Again, as we have been saying the whole time, it all boils down to the basics. Are you dependable? Are you reliable? Do you have the basic skills? Can you be taught? Are you coachable? Do you get along with others? Bottom line is, people want to deal with people that they like. When you go to the store to buy something, you want to deal with somebody that you get along with. You want to deal with somebody that you like. It's basic human nature. Going into the workforce, looking for a job, hiring somebody, it's all the basics of human nature. If you remember those, again, keep it relevant to what the employer is looking for. When you walk in, look at it from the employer's point of view. How can you, as the job applicant, make the company better? How can you make the employer more money? How can you make them succeed, help make them succeed? This is what the employer is looking for. So think of it in their terms. Again, remember, as always, it's your future, it's your choice. Thanks for being with us.